cool.
Yes, hello. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Live Before Lock. Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants. Kicking off in just under an hour, and we're here to break it all down. Dave Loughran with me, Greg Ehrenberg. And there's not a lot of value on this slate at all. It's a fun game. Yeah, I like these type of games. Usually there's some cheap options that stand out. Not today, but that just makes it that much more intriguing of a slate. I mentioned to you before we started the show that Kajeski and I this morning were using the single lineup sim, doing everything we could to get a positively simmed ROI lineup with CeeDee in the captain spot. It's possible, don't get me wrong, but anything you build that you feel relatively decent about was just negative. And I think a lot of that is because it's going to be duped to hell.
Yeah, and I mean, I was running my stuff through the Sims, and it's like, all right, you're either getting lineups that are very heavily geared towards the Giants, or like you said, some of the Cowboys lineups that are actually viable, where it's like 4-2 or 5-1 Cowboys. Those ones are pretty heavily duped. So it's hard to build unique lineups unless you're going more towards the Giant side of the game, which is why a lot of them show up towards the top of the Sims. And I'm like trying to figure out like, all right, how do I build lineups here where I'm not just jamming the Giants? And I think the answer is I don't. I just jam the Giants and hope for the best.
It's a good feeling, right?
Oh yeah, especially given how my dad, the biggest diehard of diehard Giants fans, he is all tuned up for today's game, especially because he hasn't been able to watch a game live yet. He's been away for the first few weeks of the season. He was doing some traveling with my mom, so he's back in my house now, and he's all excited to watch the game. And yeah, he is all pumped up for it. And at least we're gonna have similar rooting interests because I'm be rooting for Giants players, and that's certainly what he's going to be on as well.
Nice. Well, happy to have you guys with us as always. Hey, if you don't mind, you know what's coming. Take a single second, atone for your sins this Thursday evening. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get us to 500. Hey, get to 500. Why not? I think it's doable. And Matt said he's gonna funnel some Four Locos on a Monday Night Football show when we hit 100,000 subscribers. Greg, if that's not an incentive, I don't know what is.
Yeah, as if that's like him deviating from his normal day activities anyway. He wakes up a can of tuna, a Four Loco, and he's ready to run some college football projections.
Man, that guy's built different. I'm telling you. But hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so. Subscribe. Appreciate you. Chris Williams, $10 super chat to kick off the show. Oh, man, I should have just read that first because he said, drum roll, please. You know it. Yeah, this guy said exactly what I said. You know it's coming that time. Atone, folks. Hit that thumbs up button. Bring yourself some good karma tonight. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, man. All right. All right. Thank you, Nate, for atoning. It is appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. We track all of this stuff. We can see every thumbs up, and that really dictates whether or not we treat you guys well. That's not true. We can't see your thumbs up. And yeah, Daniel, Four Locos are not what they. I agree. I told Matt the last time I drank one of those, I tried to fight somebody, and I'm not an aggressive person. That's not a friendly type of beverage at all. But anyway, let's get into it, man. We got Dallas Cowboys, 5.5-point favorites. This line bounced around quite a bit from 4.5 to 6, 5.5. I'm seeing some 5s out there. Funny thing is, though, like as bad as the Cowboys have been, they're still significant favorites. And not just that, though, Greg, but this game has a decent total on it as well. So, like, there should be points scored, 45-point total with this year's NFL, where you've had like every week 5 or 6 under 40. It's a decent number. The question now just becomes not who's a good player or not, because I could rattle that off pretty easily, and so could you. But I want to spend more time actually talking about how we're building lineups, because when you're trying to jam CeeDee and Dak with CeeDee in the captain spot, and you go, oh, wait a second, Ferguson, Cooks, and Tolbert aren't even that cheap. There's no real value aside from that. Rico Dowdle's not that cheap. You run into a bit of a predicament there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's like what we're talking about at the top of the show. That's one of the main reasons why my lineups are geared more towards the Giants side, because you have these skill position players like CeeDee Lamb from the Cowboys, who's so expensive, and it does make him relatively difficult to be getting to, unless it is you're pairing him with some of the really cheap players from the Giants, because I don't see any players I really love for cheap on either side of the game. Like, you can make a case for guys like Darius Slayton, or you could go really cheap and you can maybe punt with, let's see, who is it that I was getting to? Jalen Hyatt was in a couple of lineups. Don't really feel particularly great about that. Kickers show up in lineups, never have an issue with them. But there's nobody who's out in this game that's creating a massive value opportunity. And then also on the Cowboy side, they've got multiple running backs that are going to be getting touches. So it is hard to find cheap guys that you actually like.
Yeah. And, there's going to be some people that are like, all right, well, Theo Johnson. And I think Theo Johnson's fine. Bellinger really isn't getting a lot of work. Maybe Bellinger plays more, maybe, but they'd probably keep him in the block because he's a much better blocker than Theo Johnson. And that Dallas pass rush is the strength of that defense. Tyrone Tracy's getting some opportunities, so you can't just entirely rule him out. And then, like you mentioned, Jalen Hyatt, he's the cheapest guy that's probably going to see the field. But there's no one getting excited about that now that Darius Slayton was ruled in, right? If Slayton was out, maybe it'd be a little bit different. But just go down the list. You're pretty much just looking at a bunch of different guys that you'd be lucky to get 3 fantasy points from, let alone more. Oh, Hunter Lipke, there's another one for you. But I don't see him being particularly involved at all. Last game to me is more of an outlier than anything else, at least the way I see it.
Yeah. And I mean, it just goes to show how weak the value options are when you mentioned Bellinger as being a potential option when he's got 2 catches for 20 yards on the entire season. And
yeah,
I don't even have a pushback to him. Like, yeah, he's okay relative to some of the other cheap options.
Yeah. And if he is out there more, he might just be blocking anyway. So no, it's ugly. It's ugly from top to bottom. But let's get into it. So on the Dallas Cowboys side of things, like CeeDee Lamb obviously looks good. He's minus money to score a touchdown. He's like minus 120 to score a touchdown today. He's got a receiving yards prop sitting around 80.5, 81.5, and a receptions prop at what? I think 6.5 with the over juiced. So
yeah. I was going to say both him and Nabers, similar props juiced.
Very similar. Very similar. CeeDee's better in the prop department just because Nabers is plus money to score, but they're pretty close. They're pretty close pretty much everywhere. I do like Lamb better in this spot. I know the Cowboys have been terrible. Their inability to run the ball has really hurt every other aspect of that offense. I still like Lamb. I also think that there's a bit of a narrative here. He came out Tuesday after not speaking to the media after Sunday's loss to Baltimore at home and basically took full responsibility for all of his actions, his lack of, quality play, his demeanor and all of that stuff. He pretty much took responsibility. He kind of gave a smirk and was like, yeah, that won't happen again. That's going to change. So in my head, I'm like, oh shit, Greg. I didn't think Greg, but I'm talking to you now. And I was like, oh shit, man. Could this just be the CeeDee Lamb eruption game? Like this guy last year in 18 games had 110 plus yards in half of them. Half of them. It's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. They just haven't been good. And when they were good in week 1, they didn't need CeeDee Lamb. And it was a tough matchup against that Browns secondary. They just simply didn't need him in week 1 because Deshaun Watson was the Cowboys' best offensive player.
While you're saying that, I'm looking up some of the alt lines on CeeDee Lamb.
I laddered him, by the way, on Monday.
Oh, all the way back on Monday. What were the odds then? Because I think that I could be talked into the upside of CeeDee Lamb here. What were the odds you got on Monday?
I'm pulling it up right now. I got 76.5 as the standard line.
Okay.
On FanDuel. I'm logging in. Hold on. 76.5 on the standard line. What's it at now? 81.5.
And then you've got the
I got 125 plus at plus 390.
Okay.
So what's it at now?
FanDuel does those profit boosts that usually, like, it depends what your limits are there, but like it's not a really significant number that you could bet. But for something like this, there's the like the 25% profit boost. I'm considering for FanDuel, Waffy, 25% profit boost, CeeDee Lamb plus 760 plus 100 for 150 plus receiving
Do it.
yards.
Do it.
So
I
you
mean,
get that number.
you're only going to get $10 down, but
Yeah.
do it. Do it. Why
Uh,
not?
yeah, that's so it's 50% profit boost, $10. So whatever, $10 plus 1130 odds, get $10 to win 110 if CeeDee Lamb has 150 receiving yards. So what you just said, he had 110 plus receiving yards in half his games last year. We know he has a really high upside. I think that's a fun way to bet the game.
Me too. Blackjack Lloyd said just because CeeDee whined, everyone thinks he's going to go off tonight. LMAO. No, I think he could go off tonight because, all right, because Dallas actually has a very good pass blocking offensive line. The only strength of the Dallas or the New York Giants defense, outside of some talent but questionably suspect guys in the secondary, is their pass rush. Okay, and their defensive line. Sure, at times, not everybody. There's two guys on that defensive line, right? If they can't get to Dak Prescott tonight, and CeeDee Lamb has time to get open, he's going to get open. He's also a top 3 wide receiver in football. And you're getting, I was getting essentially 4-1 odds on 110 yards. So that's why. What I'm saying, while it's not quantifiable, is that it doesn't hurt if I'm already betting this to hear a guy go, listen, this won't happen again. But no, I just think this is a good matchup. And if Dak has time to throw, CeeDee's phenomenal at getting open, especially when there's time. That's all. Anyway, did you bet it?
Yep, I just did. I got the CeeDee Lamb. It is the $10 bonus boost bet at plus 1130 odds. So $10 to win the $113. That's going to be my long odds fun play for the slate here.
Okay. JB Hughes said Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns are dogs, though. That's who I'm referring to. They're fantastic. They're excellent. They're excellent. But go look at the numbers on that Dallas pass blocking this year. Even though they have some changes to that offensive line, they've been really, really good. That has not been the issue. Dak's been pressured at a lower clip than everyone in the league, not named Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. That's you're in good company there because they're trying to protect those guys. Anyway, Goody with a super chat said, tough builds today. Agreed. Greg, what if Dallas gets their run game going and Lamb is the fade in GPPs? Not getting too much Nabers. Is that completely insane? Pull me off of this clip. It's possible Dallas gets the run game going and CeeDee Lamb just isn't as involved. It's totally possible. And with the way this season's going, it wouldn't shock me at all if Zeke and Dowdle combine for 250 on the ground, dude.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest issue that I have with trying to figure out what to do with the Dallas run game is that we are seeing multiple guys get touches. Dowdle's going to get touches. Zeke is going to get touches. I mean, we're even going to see a little bit of Deuce Vaughn out of the backfield. It's not like just because Zeke is back, Deuce Vaughn has become a zero. He's still going to be getting some snaps. So I think it's very unlikely that he's going to be taking like a serious chunk of the touches, but he's still just somebody to consider. And then it's like, what is the realistic ceiling for Rico Dowdle, Zeke Elliott? It's there, but I think it's kind of contingent on either one of them getting hurt or them breaking off long runs or just scoring short touchdowns, because I don't think it's very likely that Dowdle or Zeke are getting 20 plus touches. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You mean a piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. But I could see a scenario where Rico Dowdle starts to kind of pull away from Zeke. I don't know if it'll be this game or next game or 3 weeks from now, but I do think there's a real possibility that they're forced to start giving Rico Dowdle more work.
And then another thing to consider as well is, well, number one, I just think that Zeke is super washed at this point in his career and that Rico Dowdle is just the better overall all-around running back. But one other thing that I think hasn't really been taken into consideration with some of the Cowboys' early struggles, or I mean, really with anybody's early struggles at this point in the season, the Cowboys played the Cleveland Browns on the road week 1, which sure, it's an easy matchup, but it is still a road matchup, and they won that one comfortably. Then they have to go and play the New Orleans Saints. The Saints might be the best team in the NFC if the 49ers are going to be this banged up all year. I think the Saints are legitimately very good. And they have to play the Ravens in week 3, which is also a really tough matchup.
Hold on, so the 0-2 Raiders, who are desperate to get a win.
Yeah. So they've played 2 of probably at least one, the Ravens for sure. I think one of the best teams in the NFL. The Saints, I suspect, are one of the best teams in the NFL. And then the Browns, it was a game they won comfortably. It was a road game, and all road games are relatively difficult in the NFL unless you're playing like the Patriots or something like that at this point. So it's a very difficult strength of schedule that the Cowboys have played. And I think that this is probably their easiest matchup. Even though the Giants beat the Browns last week, I do think ultimately the Browns are going to be the better team than the Giants when the dust settles. So this is a spot where I do think we should see the Cowboys find more success than they've had so far this season.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if I agree that the Browns are going to be the better team. No, I think so, because I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be starting much longer.
Jameis Winston time.
Deshaun's terrible, man. But also, they didn't have Jack Conklin. Jedrick Wills comes back and gets hurt in game with re-aggravates a knee. And Miles Teller goes down in that game as well. So, I mean, not Miles. What's his name? Wyatt Teller. Miles Teller is a good actor.
Yeah, Miles Teller's the actor, and then there's Penn and Teller, the magic act.
Yes,
so there's lots to consider.
Miles Teller's good. Have you seen Whiplash?
I have, and then also he was on the Manning cast last week.
Oh yeah. He was great in War Dogs too with Jonah Hill. Good movie.
He wasn't great on the Manning cast because it's always here's what happens.
He's an Eagles fan, right? I think he's an Eagles fan.
He's a big Eagles fan. But what I find happens on shows like that, if you bring in like an actor or somebody from the entertainment space, what happens is they try to pretend to be like a football aficionado, and then Eli and Peyton try to be like comedic, and they try to be more entertaining, and then just like everybody's out of role. So, but either that, like I do like Miles Teller.
Point is, the Browns had a lot of injuries to that offensive line for sure, and neither of Myles Garrett's feet work right now. He was already playing through an injury, then he hurt his other his other foot. Yeah, crazy. But no, I mean, I think Dowdle has the higher ceiling in this game for sure, right? Like he has to, unless it just devolves into one of those games where the run game's working and they start splitting it. But Zeke played 51% of snaps in week 1, 40 in week 2, 19% last week. Now, it was an odd game. And let's not give Dallas a pass entirely, right? They've allowed over 460 yards on the ground over the last 2 games. That's abysmal. I mean, right? That's as bad as you can possibly get. 460.
Shouldn't happen this game. It should not happen this game.
It shouldn't. But that's the one way this game goes against them, is that they still can't stop the run. And Devin Singletary has a huge game. It's funny because Daniel Jones has rushing upside too. I bet an anytime touchdown on Daniel Jones today. Ben bet the over on rushing yards. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I like Daniel Jones rushing upside here. People ignore it, but he's mobile. How about this? He leads the team in red zone carries with 8. Singletary has 7. And he leads the team in goal line carries with 3. Singletary has 2. So I don't think it stays that way all season, of course. I don't expect like Jalen Hurts type opportunity share inside the 5. But Daniel Jones is definitely used in that capacity. To me, it makes him that much more interesting, especially if they do fall behind or if he's getting flushed out of the pocket against a good pass rush. You might just see him forced to take off.
He's my most rostered player in this game on both DraftKings and FanDuel.
Really?
And I don't know that there's a player in the NFL right now that is a bigger gap between their real life talent and their fantasy talent than Daniel Jones, just because of his ability to run the football and how willing he is to do it. Like you said, also the potential for the touches down by the goal line as well. 2 years ago, he had 7 rushing touchdowns.
I know. I know. He can get it done. He can get it. I'll never forget the one against the Eagles where he took off and he ran for like 80 yards and then just tripped over his own feet.
Yeah. Yeah. He was swallowed up by the 12-yard line.
Yeah. Yeah. He was. But like that was a crazy run. Daniel Jones, it's there. It's there. Like, what are his last year doesn't count.
He died last year.
Yeah, he died. But he had 206 rushing yards in 5+ games, 708 rushing yards the season before. He's absolute 700 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns for a quarterback is borderline elite production.
Yeah, for fantasy. I mean, if you remember last year, if you guys did best ball drafts, Daniel Jones was getting picked in the top 100. Like, he was getting picked in best ball drafts last year where like Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray were getting picked this year. And it's not because anybody thought he was great. It's just like, hey, this quarterback ran for 7 touchdowns and 700 yards the year before. It was hard to deny that kind of upside. The upside's still there. He's just going to be inconsistent because he sucks. But for fantasy, especially when you're getting at $9,400 over on DraftKings on a slate where it is pretty hard to find options that are great to save salary with, like, you're getting potential really elite production out of the quarterback position, at least as far as fantasy is concerned. Daniel Jones, 9,400 on DraftKings, 13,000 over on FanDuel. And you compare that to somebody like Dak Prescott, you have to pay $3,000 more for Dak Prescott on FanDuel than you have to pay for Daniel Jones. On DraftKings, you are paying, what is it? The price point on Prescott, $10,000, so $1,000 more. So not as big of a gap over on DraftKings, but still those $1,000 mean a lot on a slate like this, which is why Daniel Jones is my most rostered player.
I get it. By the way, if you guys want to see how any of your lineups grade out in their single lineup sim, let Jordan know, and he can run them for you. Jordan, it sucks that you're spending most of your time just banning those scumbag bots in chat, trying to get people to click. But yeah. If you have any, hit Jordan up. He'll run them through the single lineup sim and see how they sim out for you. And of course, you guys want to use any of these tools. We got the sims pulled up now. We're going to talk about exposures, see if we can build a lineup later in the show as well with the single lineup sim, which just gives you straight instant feedback on how your lineup does in the sims when you hand build it. So it's really the best of both worlds. It's like now you're entering the world of 2024 DFS and further, yet you can still hand build lineups and figure out if you're building good lineups with leverage, factoring in ownership, projection, all of that stuff. It's a really, really awesome tool. We just started it in week 1 of this season, and we're really excited about it, man. And so is everybody that's used it. Links in the description and in the chat for that. But we narrowed it down to just one link. So if you click on it, you can see everything for weekly and for monthly. And you can see all of the different packages. So yeah, Greg, I'm very happy that we don't have 18 links down there anymore. It's just one, because a lot of people might not be ready to sign up, but now they can at least click on the link and see what the available options are instead of just taking them to a sign up page, which doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget that any package you sign up for, you do get access to our Discord channel. It comes with access to that Discord channel. It's part of every single package that we have on the site. So if you are going to sign up, join the Discord channel. There's no reason not to. It's fun. Come hang out with us. And if you have any questions about anything, you could ask me. You could ask any of the devs if it's a question specifically about how any of the tools work or anything like that. So lots of people in Discord to help support any of your questions.
Yeah, man. Chris Williams, I'm using the single lineup tool right now. Oh yeah, nice. Brother. It's an awesome tool. Matt and I were saying how often we were both using it on our phones recently because it is optimized for mobile, by the way, which is sweet. Who was I talking about? Oh, there was a good question in chat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good question in chat. You'd be a great candidate to answer this one, Greg. Nate asked, I'm playing mostly satellites tonight. How would you construct for those smaller winner take all type contests?
How small? Because there's different size satellites, and whether he's talking about like one of the 10-man ones or the 100-man ones, it would be a little bit different. So I would ask that as a follow-up, Nate. Just throw it into YouTube chat.
Let's say it's 100.
100? Yeah, so if you're in a 100-man tournament and it's winner take all, you're going to want to build a lineup with a lot of upside, and then you're approaching it like a GPP where you really want as much stealing as possible. If it's one of those 10-man contests, in that sort of one, you're building more of like a cash game sort of lineup, just because it's a smaller field, only 10 people. So I think that you could play kind of more like a cash game. But 100-man one, yeah, I would play that. If you're running lineups through the Sims for a 100-man field, I would run that with the 30% to first, and you're trying to find something with as much upside as possible.
David says, not sure how I feel about Nabers. Olave and Zay didn't do much versus Dallas. Yeah, it's just, you can't, Nabers might not have a great game, but you can't look at it that way. Because like context, that's the thing, man. Context in the NFL is going to be so important, and you got to pay attention to that. Because Lamar and Derek Carr combined for 31 pass attempts. I mean, Greg, they completed a combined 23 passes, and they scored what, like 70 total points combined, something crazy. They just they didn't need Zay Flowers. They didn't need Olave in those games. Maybe they won't need Nabers tonight, but I have a tough time seeing the game script play the way it did against New Orleans and Baltimore. I really do, man. I'll eat my words. I know you feel the same way though. You don't see that the same game script playing out.
No. I mean, Nabers is my favorite pay up skill position player on the slate, and it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, just volume. And it is really, really difficult to choose between him and CeeDee Lamb for single entry. I did end up going with Malik Nabers as my pay up option as opposed to CeeDee Lamb. And the reason it's twofold. Number one, it's just this undeniable volume that Malik Nabers has. He had 12 targets and 2 rushing attempts last week. The Giants are just doing everything they can to get him the ball as often as possible. So
he has the highest target share in the league.
It's ridiculous. 12 targets and 2 rushing attempts last week. And the week before, he had 18 targets against Washington. The Giants are just doing he's their like entire offense. And so they do everything they can to get the ball in the hands of Malik Nabers. And then on top of it, too, if I like Daniel Jones more than Dak Prescott because of the salary savings and some of the rushing upside of Daniel Jones as well, it just makes sense from a correlation standpoint that it would also be a little bit higher on Malik Nabers than it would be on CeeDee Lamb. So, I like the Giants combination at pay up options, Daniel Jones to Malik Nabers, more than Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. I don't feel great about it because I know the gap in actual ability throwing the football between Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones. But when I run everything through the Sims, I just look at how the lineups shake out. I understand we're starved for salary savings, and I go with the cheaper Giant stack there with all the volume that's going towards Malik Nabers.
I get it. 100%. Arcatelza, what's up, man? He said Cowboys, America's team. Yeah, 2024 America. That I don't know anymore if that's something to brag about. Amy had a great question too. I think this will be helpful to everyone watching the show right now. Amy asked, how are you leaving enough on the table? 0 punt plays. That's a great question, because a lot of times on a lot of slates we talk about, hey, if you're trying to get different, one way to do it would be just by simply leaving a little bit of salary on the table, still getting to good lineups. It is not quite as easy to do that on a day like today. Now, I'm not saying every lineup's going to be maxed out, but there's such a dearth of value at the bottom that you're going to have trouble finding great lineups where you're leaving like 2-3K on the table.
Yeah, so I have lineups that leave salary on the table. Like my third best lineup leaves $700 in salary on the table. Still a decent amount, but this isn't one of these slates where I have top projected lineups that are leaving $2,000 in salary on the table or anything like that. I think of my top 20 lineups, the most salary I'm leaving on the table is 700. There's a couple lineups that leave 600 on the table. By the way, there's also a couple of super chats if you didn't see them.
Yeah, I'm going to get to them. Oh, were you done?
Yeah, I'm just looking through my lineups. But yeah, I don't think this is a good slate to leave like $2,000+ in salary on the table.
I don't either. Gerardo DFS, thanks, man. Singletary, captain, Lamb, Nabers, Jones, Theo Johnson, and Slayton. Run that one for him, Jordan, for sure. Let me see. Singletary, captain, Lamb, Nabers, Jones. I kind of like that. I mean, look, if you're going for that contrarian kind of Giants onslaught, that's a good way to do it. I don't know how popular that'll be.
It won't be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at my lineups, I do like Singletary more than Dowdle or Zeke Elliott if you're looking to roster a running back in the game. It's just so much better to feel good about the workload for Devin Singletary than it is to feel about the workload of Rico Dowdle or Zeke Elliott. So he's my favorite running back to roster in the game. Talked about Daniel Jones, talked about Nabers, CeeDee Lamb. Like those are all great guys to be rostering. And then as far as cheap players go, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, I don't think there's any cheap players that I consider to be much better options than them. I know that you've talked a couple of times when we've looked at the Giants offense this season, Lofty, about how good of an athlete Theo Johnson is. Is it actually going to culminate into any kind of real life
I don't
DFS success?
know.
But so far the answer is no.
Right.
But on a one-game slate where we're starved for value, it's not the worst thing to bet on.
No, man, Matt and I talked about him a lot this morning. He's playing 80+% of snaps every game. He's running a lot of routes. He had an end zone target last game. So at that price point, you can say all the shitty things you want about Theo Johnson, and in some way you'd likely be justified. But it doesn't mean that on a game like this that he's not viable. Plus, he's a rookie. You might just see him start to get more comfortable. Blackjack Lloyd with a super chat. I talk trash from time to time, but I do appreciate the input you guys provide. Thank you. All love, brother. Appreciate you, man. And then Sharon, is there Sharon? Yeah, we'll go with Sharon. Tell me if I got that wrong. What's up, fellas? Appreciate all the content. Best in the business. Thanks, man. Can you run a sim for us FanDuel players? Yeah, Jordan, we can run that and then zoom in, get some exposures up there, see what the top 150 lineups look like. Tab Jones, Aubrey, Singletary versus Cooks, Tolbert on DraftKings. Aubrey and Singletary versus Cooks, Tolbert. That's all for me. That's Aubrey Singletary for sure. For sure.
Aubrey Singletary. One thing that's funny is every single Showdown slate, but not every single one, probably like 80% of them though, 4 out of 5 primetime games, you're seeing DFS players complain online about like, kickers made another long field goal, kicker in the winning lineup again. Kickers are underowned in Showdown slates. That shows up over and over again when you run stuff through our sims. Kickers are always simulated as being underowned on slates and good options. And for whatever reason, you see whenever kickers have good games, which happens almost all the slates, like of all the primetime slates we've had this year, Lofty, what has there been? 1, maybe even 0, where there was a kicker who was not in the winning lineup. And instead of people playing kickers, they just complain that kickers are in the winning lineups. It happens all the time.
More often than not. And also, now you're talking short week football, like these Thursday night games that typically stay lower in scoring. Oh, yeah. And you've got a guy that, for what it's worth, drilled a 65-yarder last week. This guy, I think, is career 14 for 14 on 50+ yard kicks. Like week 1, he hit one from 57, 52 in week 2, 65. That is the NFL record. Like they'll let this guy kick from his own end zone at this point. Brandon Aubrey's sick, but both of these guys are in play. Yeah, kickers are absolutely viable today. And every day.
So, sorry, just one other thing I was going to add. Kicking has just gradually gotten better over the course of the history of the NFL. Kickers are kicking field goals from longer distances than ever and making field goals at a higher clip than ever before. If the season ended right now, the extra point rate, it would be 96.3%, the best in the history of the NFL since they moved the extra points back. The field goal percentage also is 88%. That would also be the highest in NFL history. And that's even though we've got guys kicking like 65-yard field goals. Teams weren't even considering attempting that all that often, like 5 years ago.
Damn. Okay. That's kind of crazy. I mean, things can change throughout the season, but still, it's kind of interesting. Malcolm had a super chat. Thanks, dude. Who are we underweight on the Giants side? If you ask Greg, nobody.
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to sort by leverage here, and I'll tell you who I am underweight to that's actually pulling double digit ownership. I'm a little bit underweight to Theo Johnson. If I'm going to go cheap on the Giants side, I prefer getting to Darius Slayton. I'm also underweight to the field on Tyrone Tracy. He's expected to be 12% owned at $2,800. Other Giants that I am underweight to are I am underweight to Singletary. So I'm underweight to Singletary. I prefer him more than the Cowboys running backs, but ultimately I do get in a little bit underweight to the field on him. Yeah, the other guys I'm underweight to like aren't meaningfully owned though.
By the way, guys, if you go to the beer store, grab one of these. There you go. These are, I'm not a huge IPA guy, but by God, that is delicious.
Is it hazy?
Yeah, it's the Hazy Beer Hug. Stupid name because there's a bear on it. Stupid play on words. Goose Island. They're good. But there's always the beer snobs that are like, those are disgusting. You know, like the people I went on one time, like I went online to see about a beer and the people rate them. And like people who are real beer, nothing ever gets like, if it's 5 stars max, nothing ever gets above like a 3.5 because, people just have to find something wrong with it. If it tastes good to me, I'm going to keep buying it.
Who's spending their time
You'd be
like buying
shocked.
obscure beers and then writing reviews?
You'd be shocked how many people do that shit. I'm telling you. You'd
I
be
wouldn't be
shocked.
because I've been on the internet before. It is
Yeah,
just a
right.
massive waste of time to me, though.
Big time. All right. I didn't love it. I won't buy it again, but I'll for sure finish the case in my fridge. Like that's how I look at beer. Anyway, another super chat. Using single lineup generator, is the difference between 85 sim and 109 really impactful? No. Like 89 to 105, you are in the margin of difference there is tiny, Greg. Like it's very insignificant when you're talking about something. Put it this way, like I'm not worried that one of them is 85 and one of them is 109. Those are two nice numbers.
It's as simple too, a lineup having an 85% sim ROI versus 109% sim ROI. It's likely lineups that are very, very interchangeable, but it could be something like across all of the sim runs, a lineup comes in first one more time than another one or something.
Yeah. It's not exactly. It's not impactful, no. But good question. Now, if it's like 10% and 250%, yeah, sure. That's a bit of a difference, but how are we approaching defenses today?
I can't avoid them. I don't want to play them, but they're showing up as the best mid-range plays in the Sims. Even I went in and I was like, I was getting so much exposure to the defenses that, and I don't usually do this, but I was just like, this is so much exposure to defense. So I want to see what would happen. I lowered the projections on the defenses each by half a fantasy point, which is pretty significant for a 1-game slate. And I still got to a shit ton of the defenses. So to me, all of the simulations are telling me that we do want to be playing the defenses in these games. And a big part of it is going to be just because of the lack of cheap options that we've talked about to this point. I do prefer the Dallas Cowboys defense to the Giants defense. Cowboys being $5,400. We got them pulling 22% ownership. And I do come in overweight to Dallas. Actually, I'm more overweight to the Dallas Cowboys defense than any other player. I mean, I don't know what to refer. They're not technically a player, but whatever. I'm more overweight to Dallas than any other option from the Cowboys side of the game. $5,400. You got a quarterback they're going up against in Daniel Jones who gets sacked a ton. He's very turnover prone. It's not hard to envision a scenario where the Giants could score 20 plus points. Daniel Jones has himself a good game because maybe he rushes for 50 yards or something, potentially scores a touchdown. But that doesn't mean the Cowboys can't force a couple turnovers, have a few sacks. So I like Dallas quite a bit.
Daniel Jones is a pick six god.
He's a sack god. He's a do stupid shit and fall down and fumble the football guy. He's all kinds of fantasy goodness for opposing defenses.
Yeah. See, look, there's beer snobs everywhere. Everywhere. Brandon, dude, Laffy, you're from the East Coast. You have so many better options for hazy IPAs. I just told you, man, it tastes good. I have 3 or 4 breweries just in my town within like a 1 mile radius. It tastes good. Leave me alone. Okay. Jesus.
Yeah, he's gonna go right on Yelp to write a review as soon as the show is over.
Yeah. Yeah, it tastes good. I like it. All right. So, a couple of other things here that I want to dig into a little bit with you. If we are talking about value, where do you think the best value actually comes from? Because we could just run over go over a couple of guys, but you know, I still think the best like point per dollar is Wandale. And what sucks about Robinson is that like he could easily have, oh God, he could easily have like 6 for 28. But he does get targeted. I said this on the morning show, Greg. I was like, look, I'm gonna say it. Might sound wild, but the most concentrated target share, and I haven't actually run the numbers, but if I had to guess, the most concentrated target share in the league is probably the Giants between Malik Nabers and Wandale Robinson through 65 almost % of targets between those two guys.
Nobody else really sees the football.
No.
Like Wandale Robinson, I think that it's almost going forgotten a little bit this year, or at least not noticed because of how much attention Malik Nabers is drawing and all the targets. But look at Wandale Robinson so far this year. He got 12 targets in week 1 and a rushing attempt. He did only have 4 targets in week 2, but then he got back to 8 targets in week 3. So you got a guy who through 3 games has now been targeted 24 times, and he's also got the 1 rushing attempt. So this is one of the other reasons that I prefer the Giants side of the game in Daniel Jones is if Daniel Jones has a good game, it's such an easier path to success for him in building Giants-based lineups today. If Daniel Jones has a big game throwing the football, you could be pretty certain that it means Wandale Robinson and or Malik Nabers had themselves a big game. On the Cowboys side, you got CeeDee Lamb, but there's a number of guys behind him who could also get involved in the passing game. We know where all the Giants' targets are going.
You do, unless Theo Johnson happens to get one. I will say the one positive about Jalen Hyatt, and I mean it's barely a positive. Like if Jalen Hyatt was ran through the single lineup sim, Greg, this would be like a 0.5% sim ROI. Okay. But the one positive about him is that if he's getting targets, 2, let's say, there's a good chance one of them is going to be a deep ball.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Oh, it's fair to say. It's just the likelihood of him catching it is
so there's a number of uphill battles. The odds of him catching it are low. The odds of him creating separation are low. The odds of Daniel Jones delivering the pass are low. It's like I get the upside, but it's not really a button I want to click.
I don't want to click it, but if I get, I'm actually finalizing my lineups right now. If I get Hyatt in lineups, I'm not going to be, giving him, because like in the Sims, you guys, many of you know, like you can negatively boost guys or de-boost them, call it what you want. And it doesn't make new lineups. It's not lowering their projection. It's just simply taking the lineups that they're already in that were run through the Sims and lowering the ROI on that, right? So that's how that works. Now, you can change projections manually, right? You can do all of that stuff. You can also set exposure caps, which I find to be very helpful. What I like to set exposure caps sometimes, Greg, when you're getting like 90% of value guy on the main slate. But I didn't set any exposure caps today at all.
I never do for Showdown.
No,
but also
ever.
You don't run lineups for Showdown ever and get a player in like 90% of lineups. It's not something that happens.
Unless it's like Jordan Mason in week 1.
True. And in that case, you just want to have all of them anyway.
You just play them. But I still have, I'm telling you right now, I still have a lot of CeeDee Lamb at captain. And I'm not touching it. I'm not changing it. I have a ton of CeeDee Lamb at captain. Like right now, captain exposure to CeeDee Lamb. I have 40% CeeDee Lamb at captain. That's a big number.
He is, of all the players on the slate, he's the one I have the third most exposure to at captain. Nabers 1, Daniel Jones 2, then CeeDee Lamb.
I like Danny Jones at captain. I mean, all of these guys at captain are fine, but a lot of CeeDee Lamb. I'm not surprised by it either. He projects well. He's expensive, but it's also just like, all right, so I'm looking at my lineups too. It's remarkable how many of these have less than $1,000 remaining. Like I'm looking at my top 30 right now. I have one, Greg, that has less than 4,900 and it's 48.5.
In even a lot of these lineups, at least for me, they use most of the salary. They're still not expected to be duped very heavily. And a lot of it is just because of them being like 5-1 Giant stacks or 4-2 Giant stacks, a build that Field isn't going to want to go to as often because it's the New York Giants. They're taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are bigger favorites. But I think the value on the Giants side from a points per dollar sense from the projections really makes it so that the Giants are the side to have more exposure to, even if we don't think they're going to win. Like I'm picking the Cowboys to win. And even in our projections, there's like more raw fantasy points going to the Dallas Cowboys overall for that reason. But still, Giants show up in lineups more.
All right, I have my lineups in. Let's go over some final exposures here. What do you say before we?
Let's do it. And I'll also bring up FanDuel for the people that are asking about it in the chat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. See, we try to be men of the people here. Sometimes it's tough. All right. Any of you guys down south, by the way? That
Hopefully
looks
not right now.
rough. Cat 4? You see that?
Yeah, I saw some of the radars. My dad also, because people on the channel know my parents live in Florida now, but they stay with me when it is hot down south. They stay up here until it gets cold up here, and they go to their place down in Florida. And my dad didn't know exactly when the hurricane was supposed to be, so he had asked me earlier. He's like, "Do you think I should go down to Florida to close my place up?" I was like, "It's a little past that at this point."
Yeah, it's a little way.
I don't know how he would get there.
The old jack off is his name. I think that was that him that said, "Way to chop, Laffy." Well, I don't know, man. We have CeeDee projected for 17% captain ownership, 17.7. I mean, I'm clearly taking a stand on this, regardless if he's popular or not. Like I have what if he's 17% and I have 40, Gray? I'm well over 2x the field. So that's
Yeah,
just
it's
what I'm
not like
getting.
he's popular, but not like insanely so or anything like that. I'm
Probably
getting a
because it's
little.
not easy to build lineups with him a captain that you like.
Yeah, earlier today he was projecting for more ownership on both the captain and MVP spots. It's come down a little bit, but yeah, it's not like he's insanely popular or anything.
Devin Singletary, I have a captain a decent amount. Daniel, so my top 5 at captain: Lamb, Singletary, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, and Malik Nabers, and very little of anyone else.
For me, it's Nabers, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And that also means that by that order, I have most overweight to Nabers and Daniel Jones. And then even getting Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb as my third and fourth most rostered captain, I come in underweight to the field on them. And then on the FanDuel side, if I look at my MVPs, I am getting the most of. All right, so on my FanDuel Sims, MVPs over on FanDuel, I am getting the most of Daniel Jones, no surprise, over on FanDuel. Dak Prescott is super, super popular over on FanDuel in the MVP spot. We got him projected for nearly 30% ownership. It's pretty easy to be different just by going to anybody else other than Dak Prescott, even if that's CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has got about half the ownership projection of Dak Prescott, as does Daniel Jones. So overall, my favorite is Daniel Jones. If I want to be really contrarian, Devin Singletary is 12,000 on FanDuel. Not that there's any kind of multiplier salary there, so it doesn't make as big of a difference in terms of saving salary at that spot. but he's only pulling 7% ownership, and I'm about double the field on Devin Singletary at the MVP spot on FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah. Same with me on Devin Singletary. I am, yeah, actually right around double. Yep. I got around 16%. Highest owned flex. Let's see this, or highest exposed flex. I just want to see where I'm landing on kickers. All right. So I actually don't have a ton of kickers, Greg. I actually have less than I normally would. 28% Aubrey, 17% Greg Joseph.
Okay. Yeah, I have a little bit more than that, but yeah, it's not like one of these slates where I have like 60% of kickers, which happens pretty frequently. Instead, it's the defenses that I land on a ton of.
I have 47% Cowboys in the flex.
Yeah, not dissimilar from myself.
That's a lot, but it's not
It's a
crazy
lot.
either. Well, it just comes down to like, all right, so what are the spots that are usually underowned on a Thursday night game? It's kicker and defense too. Like people still have an aversion to playing defenses and kickers. They just like, especially if you're hand building, you just kind of never want to do it.
And then also, if you look at the players that are priced around the Cowboys defense, you've got these are the players who are more expensive. Jalen Tolbert, we've got him projected like almost 2 full fantasy points less than the Dallas Cowboys, and he's more expensive, and they have comparable ownership. Then you got Zeke. He's less popular in the Cowboys defense, but same deal. He's $800 more expensive and projects for about half a fantasy point less than the Dallas defense. So just from like a projection standpoint, you can see why Dallas would show up more than some of these other players. And then you got Brandon Aubrey, who's right below them. They have kind of a comparable projection, Dallas being a little bit higher though. So if I am looking to save salary in that mid-range, the guys that are standing out the most to me, it's the Cowboys defense, it's Wan'Dale Robinson, and then the next two options for me, then it's the kickers and Brandon Aubrey and Greg Joseph.
Okay. Envious, did you take the DK happy hour boost, Laffy? What is it?
Oh, I did see that one.
What's the happy hour boost?
It's the one that they give you like it's like a $5 or $10 max bet, but it's usually a bet that's like minus 165 that's boosted to like even money or plus
Is it the Malik
125 or something
Nabers
like
and
that.
CeeDee Lamb that combined for 150 at plus 125?
Yeah. It's a good look.
All right. Yeah, max amount $10. I mean, yeah, I'll bet it. There we go. Thanks. Rob said you're not going to mention Dowdle. We talked about him quite a bit at the top of the show. A lot. No, I think Dowdle's totally reasonable. I have a lot of Rico Dowdle at the flex, Greg. A lot. I don't have a lot at captain, only 4.5%. And I think it kind of belongs that way. I'm perfectly fine with it. I am over the field though. I'm over the field at the flex on Rico because we have him around 28% ownership. I have him at 39%. By the way, guys, one more time, link to everything, even if you wanted to just check these tools out in the description and in the chat. Jordan can throw it in there. Single lineup sim, simulator, top stack tool, boom bust, premium Discord comes with every package, ownership, player projections, lineup generator, you name it. Everything for NFL is right there. And we got another doubleheader on Monday. We got a big afternoon slate, a big main slate, a big early slate, Sunday night football. Just a lot going on this week. So perfect time to check it out. Even if for a week, you will love the tools, hands down. But I have a lot of Dowdle, Greg, for sure.
He's my favorite player in that price. Like I like him more than Zeke Elliott. I like him more tон Jalen Tolbert. I like him more than Brandon Cooks. But I have 26% of Rico Dowdle. So I am a little bit underweight to him, but he's one of my favorite Cowboys. I'm just underweight to most of the Cowboys.
James Duran, how do some people have 250 max on that boost? Do you want to tell him, Greg?
Bets. You lose that. It's the one benefit of losing a lot of bets on FanDuel and DraftKings that you get some sweet promo offers. The downside is that you have to, lose some bets.
Lose money. Yeah. 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 The 250 is just if DraftKings flags you in a good way for them.
Yeah.
A bad way for you. but you probably see it as good. Like if you have a $250 bet on that, you're going to take it every single time. It is a clear plus EV bet.
Yeah. I mean, zero doubt about it. It's like of the things you could viably bet, it's the best thing that I've seen on the board today.
Well, the best thing is Bet365's touchdown promo, hands down.
Even better than because I mean, I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
that's
no,
CeeDee
no.
Lamb and
It's the Bet365 promo is bet $50 on a same game parlay for Thursday night football. Now it can be cumulative, right? Or it can be a single. I just do one same game parlay. I'm not going through the trouble of betting like 5 different $10 same game parlays, but you could get a $10 bonus bet for every touchdown scored in the game. I mean, that's a great one. Outside of last Thursday, outside of last Thursday where there were only 3 touchdowns scored, first 2 Thursdays I lost my same game parlay for 50 and got 50 back in bonus bets on both of them.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's pretty good, right? It's a 45-point total tonight.
45-point total. Yeah. What happens if defense is scored? Does that count towards that as well?
Any touchdown in the game. Okay. Also, I'll do you one better. Here's the crazy part about this. It's a 3+ leg same game parlay, but minimum odds are even money. So like you can build a, we'll say plus 100 parlay and it still counts.
Okay.
It's not bad.
All right. By the way, also, people should know that if they sign up at Bet365, not only is there a great sign-up offer there, place a $10 deposit, place a $5 bet, and you get $250 in bet credits, but also now we've got the deal where if you do that, you can get Lofty's Insider Package for free. You get any Insider Package of your choice, 1 month free when you sign up at Bet365. So how about that?
That is nice. Bet365 down there in the description, baby. Check it out. Yeah. Oh, I'm burying the lead here. You get $200 in bonus bets as well. If you just bet $5, you could bet the first drive of the game and it's a 3 and out. And I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying. And the moment that bet settles, you have $200 in bonus bets. Just deposit 10 with that link. Tom Kennedy, Stochastic CEO. Why does why does Laffy get more engagement on his PB&J content than betting content? Yeah, because I tweeted today.
Tom.
What's that?
I said that could have been a super chat, Tom.
Yeah, right. What I said, Greg, was just because you're an adult doesn't mean you shouldn't still be crushing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with regularity. I eat like 5 a week, peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and banana. After a workout, any time of day, I crush peanut butter and jelly.
And, or if you're Eric and you're a lazy bitch, he makes, he heats up Uncrustables and eats those and shoves them down his face before we start baseball shows.
Peanut butter and jellies are lazy. Uncrustables are for like the pinnacle of laziness. If you can't,
it's, you know, who doesn't have enough time to make a peanut butter and jelly?
That's what I'm saying. Peanut butter and jelly is for when you don't want to cook. Uncrustables when you've given up on life. it's not good. But yeah, my wife looks at me even sometimes. She's like, "You're disgusting." It's just flowing out of it, falling onto the plate. They're so good though. You a peanut butter and jelly guy?
I'll enjoy peanut butter and jelly here and there.
You should do it more often. I'm just saying. Anyway, any other questions, super chats, comments that you guys have before we wrap this up? Still got 1,000 people with us.
I think the game already locked.
Oh, it's 8:16.
Yeah.
Look at that. We're just having such a good time. All right, cool. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. Follow Greg at G Ehrenberg, DFS, me at Laffy_D. Anything else before we go?
Just one thing to let you guys know, we are also running a pretty cool promo over for OddsShopper. We've got our new portfolio EV. If you guys want to check it out, promo code 50, you get 1 week totally for free to try out the new tools that we have there and start it. You know, like right now, you're not going to find a whole bunch of bets at this moment because, you know, it's Thursday night, the football game just locked, and I think all the baseball games have already started, but we're certainly going to start to see Friday and Saturday, lots of bets start to populate for the Sunday NFL games, and then also some college football. If college football is available to bet in your state. So link down below in the YouTube box, and that is just promo code 50. The number is 50, and you get 1 week free of Odd Chopper.
Absolutely. I've been crushing with it this year. Very happy about it. So have you. Yeah, you just posted it yesterday. Anyway, you guys are the best. Greg and I will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, our favorite show of the week, Sim Strategy. This is where the real people come to figure out what's going on for the week. We hope to see you there. Until then, have fun tonight, guys. Good luck, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.